As Mrs. Thatcher said, rejoice, rejoice. There's so much good news today, I hardly know where to start. But I am starting to think that maybe I've fallen into an alternate universe where things come out good. And yeah, if I have, I would like to stay there. Please. I'm Granny Opterix. All right, so this is from the Daily Telegraph, and I have a couple more from the Scottish Sun as well, of a particularly nasty case. But we'll start with this. Humza Yousaf faces Tory vote to repeal hate crime law. MSPs urged to admit they made an error as Shadow Justice Secretary warns that deluge of complaints are taking a toll on Scotland's police. Well, you know, I stand by what I said about Scotland's police. A few people have said to me Scotland's police told Yousaf that this law wouldn't work, and so they did not deserve the, dressing down I gave them. But I stand by my position. If they hadn't gone after Count Dankula with such fury and determination, then this law probably would never have got passed, because it would have become obvious that it wasn't going to work. I'm sure it was because the police, made a sort of success out of the Dankula thing that Yousaf and, Sturgeon felt emboldened to proceed. So no, they don't deserve anybody's sympathy. Humza Yousaf certainly doesn't. Is facing a vote at Holyrood to repeal his disastrous hate crime laws amid warnings that a deluge of complaints is placing an intolerable strain on Police Scotland. MSPs are to be asked to admit they made a mistake. They made a mistake. Humza Yousaf accidentally donating money to a Gaza charity, one that will probably end up in a hotel in Qatar, but that's another matter. That is a mistake. What has happened here was no mistake. It was a deliberate attempt to restrict the freedom of the Scottish people to say anything, even in the privacy of their own homes. That is not a mistake. That is a power grab. That is a plan for tyranny. And, by the way, barking mad. Right. I'm believe it or not, I am terribly happy about this. They made a mistake. They should all go and sit on the naughty step, or stand in the naughty corner or something with a dunce's cap on their heads. MSPs are being asked to admit they made a mistake and back a Scottish Tory motion proposing that the Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act be repealed, barely a fortnight after it came into force. So, notice this is a Tory proposal, not a Labour one, because Labour and the Greens backed this disgrace, this blot on the face of a Western democracy. So Russell, and there aren't that how many Scottish Conservatives is sort of like, it's an oxymoron almost. I don't know how many there are, but I'm sure 3 or 4 maybe. Yeah, I have no idea. Russell Findlay, the Tories' Shadow Justice Secretary, said thousands of complaints tabled under the legislation were taking a toll on the country's overstretched police. Why is everyone worrying about the overstretched police? They don't deserve our sympathy. It's the people against whom this horrible thing has been perpetrated. And as if to illustrate that, there's this. Hang on. This is in the Express, the Scottish Daily Express. And it says, fears the SNP's hate crime law is being exploited after pensioner arrested and carted off to police station. This was a, let's get this centered, that's better. This was a malicious report, and the police had to act on it. So let me tell you about it. Morag McDougall Brown was left traumatized after being taken to Kilmarnock police station for questioning after she was falsely accused of directing an ableist slur at a nightmare neighbour who was attacking her rose bush. You see where these things lead. This is her road, Harbour Road in Troon. A Scots Tory MSP has warned the people are exploiting a new hate crime act after a pensioner was wrongly arrested on the word of a nightmare neighbour. And of course, that's going to happen all the time. Morag McDougall Brown is 74 and says that she and others in her street have endured years of abuse as a result of the bitter dispute. On Tuesday, the mild-mannered OAP, oh, come on, when has ever any OAP been mild-mannered, especially the ladies? Yeah, I know all about that, don't I? Says she spotted the woman damaging a rose bush in her back garden and took a photo out of the window on her mobile phone. Shortly afterwards, you see, she took a photo, so this woman knew, the nightmare neighbour knew, that there was going to be a complaint against her, so she decided to get her defence in first and rang the police. So, shortly after she took the photo, Morag McDougall Brown, 74, let's not forget that, was stunned to find two police officers at her front door at Harbour Road in South Ayrshire, in the South Ayrshire seaside town. She was arrested and taken away in a police van for questioning at Kilmarnock police station, with the apologetic officers saying she would be put in handcuffs if she refused. I should not laugh. I'm quite sure that Mrs. Brown, she was pretty shaken up by this. And 74 years old, I'm assuming that she has lived a life of respectable obscurity for into her 75th year, and suddenly she finds herself being carted off by the police. This would have been quite a shock to the system. Mrs. Brown asked why she couldn't be interviewed in her own home and was told it was due to, now listen to this, this is the thing, that the most important thing, it was due to the new law that came in on April the 1st. They didn't even name the law or actually charge her at the time with a crime. And they did that because they knew she wouldn't know, she wouldn't understand that. She did not know what this new law was. And that's because, let's face it, she probably spends her time watching television and not on the internet with rabble-rousers like me. And because of that, she wouldn't know what this law was, because the BBC and all the mainstream media, they're not giving this any airtime. They're not talking about how terrible it is, how terribly dangerous it is. Not a word. Because they're following a line that follows the line that was followed by, for instance, the Scottish Labour Party and the Greens, both of them having backed that law. You can help my channel by clicking like, by subscribing, by clicking the notification bell, and by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels are in the description, also links to donation sites, but really the best way you can help me is simply by clicking like. Thank you. So, no wonder she didn't know. So it was due to the new law that came in on April the 1st. That was all she knew of it. She also says she was not told what she was being arrested for until she arrived at the police station. I mean, yeah, of course, Kafka and the trial just zip into my mind. which is a story, by the way, about a man who's running from the police, knowing he's been charged with some sort of crime, not knowing what the crime was, and finally ending up being shot, still not knowing why he'd been charged. At that stage, it became clear the neighbour had called the police and accused Mrs. Brown of calling her I'm using a terrible word here, a simple Mongol. I'm quoting the Scottish Daily Express, YouTube. An offensive term for somebody with Down syndrome, and therefore falling under one of the protected characteristics of the new Hate Crime Act. Well, I don't know, Mrs. McDougall, Mrs. Brown or something, she looks quite together here, doesn't she? I mean, they say she's 74 and sort of implies she's this little old lady. She doesn't look terribly little old ladyish, but then maybe this is some sort of celebratory dinner. Anyway, maybe this is a photograph, a family photograph from some sort of celebratory dinner. On the other hand, it could be celebrating getting out of jail. At that stage, hang on. However, Police Scotland has insisted Mrs. Brown was arrested under Section 38 of the Criminal Justice and Licensing Scotland Act, which relates to threatening or abusive behaviour. So, look, what happened was it became clear the neighbour had called the police under the hate crime thing, and then when the police realised what they were doing, they switched charges to try and make it look a bit more logical. Are you still with the Scottish police here? Anyone who wants to put in a good word for them? You cannot do that in any civilized society. You cannot arrest somebody on one charge and then, having got to the station and discovered that you may be wrong, pulling out another charge. But they did that to Count Dankula as well, I believe. So they have form on this. I don't remember the exact circumstances of the Dankula switcheroo, though. Speaking to the Scottish Express, Mrs. Brown said, "We've had 42 incidents of antisocial behaviour involving this neighbour, so when the two police officers turned up at the door, I actually recognised them both. They said, there's been an allegation. We can't tell you what it is, but you need to accompany us to the police station." But I'm going to repeat that. They said there's been an allegation. So somebody, somewhere, has made some sort of a charge of some sort. We can't tell you what it is. So somebody somewhere made some sort of an allegation and they are some sort of arresting her. And they then said, we can't tell you what it is, but we're arresting you. They said that because of the new law that came in on April the 1st, you see that she doesn't know what it is. She has no idea. I couldn't be questioned in my own home. What? Well, all right. They were very nice. No, they weren't. They weren't very nice. They were acting like the Stasi. They may not have blacked your eye, but they would have done if you'd have put up any sort of resistance. They were very nice only because you were very compliant, Mrs. Brown. They were very nice and agreed to go and wait for me in the van so it wouldn't look as though I was being taken out of the house. Oh, yeah, appearances are all. Then I was driven through Troon in the back of a big police van. I've never been in a police van in my life. I phoned my daughter and she arranged for me to get a lawyer. They were all very nice at the police station too, asking if I was okay, but they took my jewellery. Switched off me phone. I think maybe they meant my phone and searched me. At that stage, I still didn't know what it was all about. You see, she didn't know about that hate crime law. She had no idea. And that's the problem with a lot of people of her sort. You know, they've got their lives to live, they've got their grandchildren, they watch Coronation Street or whatever, and they go to the social club on Saturday afternoons or whatever it is. They are not that interested in the news. When they see something cropping up on the BBC, they will pay some attention to it. But if it doesn't turn up there, they won't go looking for it. She had no idea. And she thinks the police were being all very nice. A set of uniformed thugs who went to arrest a 74-year-old woman on the say-so of a vicious neighbour. I was asked if I'd seen her in the garden, and I said yes. She was throwing rubbish and trying to cut down my rose bush. I took a photograph, but I didn't speak to her at all. I haven't spoken to her for months. They said, there's no charge, no criminal record, and you're free to go. My daughter was waiting outside, but I'm still traumatised by the whole thing. You see, there was no proof. And when she showed them the photograph, I mean, they could see what was going on. But they also knew that if they'd pursued this, they wouldn't have gone anywhere with it. But they had to arrest her because of the way the law has been framed. And that was a law that was backed and helped through Parliament by the Labour Party and the Greens, because they're all a bunch of socialist tyrants. Now, as I've told people before, I was a socialist in my not nearly enough misspent youth as well. Because as one of my lecturers said, if you're not a communist before you're 20, you have no heart. If you're a communist after you're 20, you have no brain. I remember him saying that to me, and I laughed. This is where socialism ends, or begins. No, this is where socialism begins and ends. With the best intentions in the world, it is a mindset and a system of people who want to make sure that everybody follows a specific line, whatever that line is. So right down here it says, this law is proving to be a disaster and should be scrapped. Yes, it should never have seen the light of day. It was as if I was a criminal. It was just awful. If they questioned me at home, that would have been fine. I could have told the truth and said I hadn't used those words. I hadn't even spoken to her. Yeah, well, why were they there in the first place? You see, this woman is obviously a kind, law-abiding person who believes that the law is there to protect her and that the politicians are there to make just and honest laws. And she's got through 74 years of life thinking that. Scottish Conservative Deputy Justice spokeswoman Sharon Dowie, MSP, said, this poor woman's experience is deeply concerning and would have understandably left her feeling traumatised. I'm sure it did. I'm sure she will, despite the fact that she's saying the police were very nice. That sort of a person is going to be permanently bruised by the fact that she was hauled off by the police, who were so nice to her, and searched, and had her jewellery taken from her, and her phone confiscated, at least temporarily. Humza Yousaf's dangerous hate crime act is open to exploitation by individuals looking to settle scores. Everyone said that would happen. Everyone who wasn't even one or two MSPs said that, but nobody on the Labour or the Green side said that. I know that. I don't think so. If one did, let me know. Comments, yeah. And this can lead to innocent people being targeted. It will lead only to innocent people being targeted. Because what will happen is this: if there is one person who's a real bully and is having a go at some sort of a minority or a disabled person or somebody like that, and being nasty to them, like a neighbour leaning on them, that person will probably not report them for fear of repercussions. It's only the people who will not fear repercussions who will do the reporting, and that is people like the nightmare neighbour and a little old lady who doesn't know very much. It will lead only to innocent people being targeted and in some cases carted off in police vans. This law is proving to be a disaster and should be scrapped. It was a disaster 3 years ago. Mary Simpson from the I Vote No to Scottish Independence Facebook page, who has championed Mrs Brown's case, told The Express the police should have used their common sense instead of arresting a pensioner and carting over. They may not have been able to use their common sense. Well, one would imagine that they might not have common sense, but even if they did, if the law says they have to take somebody in for questioning without telling them why, then that's what they have to do, because of course they're uniformed robots. They're not the sort of people who are saying, I'm not going to do this, I resign, there's my badge. Right, well, yeah, however, as angry as I am, this is good news, because it shows up that law, and with any luck, it will soon be on the scrap heap of history, as I have hopes will Humza Yousaf. Well, hang on a minute. Let's bring him back. This guy. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Grannyopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.grannyopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share, share, share.